Hi, I'm Megan Longoria, and today I'd like to share a couple tips about keeping the current month selected in your Power BI reports. You may have noticed that when you create a Power BI report with a date selection slicer and you set it to the current month, and then you come back a month later, your selection is still on the previous month. So here we have the original slicer visual with our months in the values, and we can switch it to the current month of April. And if we hover over our table, we'll see that it is indeed filtered by the slicer. But we want this setup to accommodate a current month selection every time we open it. To do that, we have a couple of options. The first option is to change your slicer visual. This is the same visual we had originally, but when we go to the settings, we change the style to relative date. So we can use relative date and have it always set to the current month. The downside of this is that it's more difficult if you want to go back to prior months. This drop down will just show last, next, and this, and that may not be what your report consumers want. There are a lot of people online recommending a tip about making a custom column, and that would work as well, but it's not my favorite. In order to do this, you add a column to your data set, and in my case, I did it in Power Query. So here's the column that I used. I added a conditional column, and I have a month offset column in my date dimension. So the current month is 0, the prior month is -1, and the next month, meaning May as of today, is +1. So if month offset equals 0, then output current month. Otherwise, output the normal month year value. So that's how I got this slicer with these values. I personally don't like when the slicer says current month because it doesn't say what month it is. So if someone took a screenshot or an export, it may not be as obvious, but it definitely works. If you hover over that table, you'll see we are filtered on month selection of current month. What I haven't seen as many people talk about is using the button slicer. The button slicer can be formatted with these radio buttons or as tiles. You have some options there, but I chose to format mine to look like the previous options, so you know that you can do that. So when we populate this button slicer, it has a field well for the value and the highlight label. So what I did was put the month offset in the value and the month year in the highlight label, and then turn off the value so that only the highlight label is shown. When April 2026, which is our current month, is selected, what's actually being passed through as the filter is month offset equals 0. As your date dimension refreshes and May becomes month offset equals 0, you will have the correct label shown and the correct filter applied, and it will always stay on whatever the current month is because behind the scenes it's really filtering on month offset and not the label that we see here. So to build this, we add a button slicer. We populate month offset and then month year in the highlight label. Then we can adjust our formatting. So I'm going to leave it single select, change this to vertical, let it show about 10 rows, narrow my gap a little bit, and then turn off the value but leave the label on. And we can see it actually is populated as a tile right now. So to make it look more like the radio buttons, we turn on our selection icon. And we'll go ahead and choose April 2026. We don't need a background or a border. And by default, our selection was white, so we're just fixing that. And then we can adjust our label so that when the item is selected, we actually make it dark. And if you don't like how light the other labels are, you can change that as well. And then you can just adjust your spacing. In these, you can do a fixed size, or you can have it adjust to the size of the visual. So if I say 25, and then adjust my padding down a little, we can decide how big we want things to be. And then I sorted my original one, descending, and filtered it where my month offset was less than or equal to 0 and greater than or equal to -12. So that I would only have the last year of month values to select from. I hope that demonstrated some good options for you to keep the current month selected in your Power BI reports. Thanks for watching.